The meeting to order. If you'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Have a seat. We thank you for joining us tonight at Lake Central, where it is our mission to develop independent and self-directed learners. Dr. Baracco, item number 2 on the agenda.
Yes, seek your approval of the revised agenda you have at your place. The only adjustment was to the minutes, which we'll approve here in a minute.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Mrs. Lesentine, correspondence.
No correspondence at this time.
All right, very good. And let's go ahead with the liaison committee updates. Mr. Marshall?
Nothing to report this evening.
Okay, and Mr. Baxter?
The Parks Department meeting I was able to attend. There was really nothing prevalent regarding the Lake Central School Corporation. They talked about some bonds and some upgrades to their parks and of that sort, but nothing really that pertained to us. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the redevelopment committee meeting, so I'll have to report on that next time.
Well, you were there Saturday, weren't you, at the event? Would you like to report on that?
Oh, that's part of the Dyer Parks Department. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what department now.
Yeah.
They had the groundbreaking for the Gold Star Family Memorial at Central Park in Dyer last Saturday. The Namachic family was there. There was many Gold Star families there as well. And also a Medal of Honor recipient, I think his name was Woody Williams, 93 years old. His foundation actually donated $5,000 to the building of the Gold Star Memorial at the Central Park. So it was sort of a ceremonial groundbreaking, and they're going to start actually working on it later on this summer at Central Park.
Yeah, very good. It was a very nice
Yeah, it was very
ceremony.
nice.
Mhm. And Sergio Perez's parents
For there as well.
were there also, both of those LC students. Okay, and Mr. Marshall, anything on personnel?
No, we have not had any meetings recently.
All right, and Mrs. Sue's, Dollars for Scholars?
The only thing I have is they will be holding their award ceremony on Sunday, April 30th at 2 o'clock.
Very good. And that's in the auditorium, right? Okay. And did you have anything from St. John Redevelopment?
No.
Okay. And Mrs. Lesentine from Sherrville?
Attended the meeting and there is nothing to report.
And Mr. Baxo for Dyer, you said you didn't?
Yeah, I wasn't able to
Okay.
attend the Dyer Development Committee meeting, but I will get some notes from somebody that was in attendance and find out what happened.
All right, I have 3 committees to report on legislative. I happened to see Mr. Slager at the groundbreaking, actually on Saturday. And of course, the big talk out in the community is to encourage our legislators to vote for the Senate version of the budget over the House version of the budget. So I said, Mr. Slager, will you vote for the Senate? He said, it's not quite that simple. That's not, you don't either pick A or B. So it goes to a committee now, and they mesh the 2 budgets together, and then there will be a recommendation that comes out of that. So, as usual, I'm always learning, and I learned that on Saturday. Lake Central Education Foundation, thanks to some great leadership, we are rebirthing, we're reorganizing. It's kind of like a renaissance, so including some support from Dr. Baracco at our meeting, so we're very excited to see Education Foundation keep flourishing. So we thank you all for your commitment to that. And the Wellness Committee, we had a meeting last week, and there are several activities within our area. But beyond that, what's so important is that the impact of the wellness and its programs' effectiveness on our benefits, and the cost of our benefits. So a wonderful tie-in right there. All right, and moving on to official school board topics, Dr. Baracco.
We are on the consent agenda first, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we seek board approval of the minutes from April 3rd, and the one adjustment is at your station you have the revised minutes from our last meeting, which has an expanded section under Roman numeral 7E. Mrs. Romali included her notes for the board. So that's the minutes piece, and then also the approval of claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries. All right, if you remember, we have a new protocol here. Are there any members in the public that would like to address any of the upcoming agenda topics on our agenda? Okay, hearing none, then we will keep moving forward. Official school board business regular agenda, Dr. Bracco.
Sure. For my first item, we are going to hear a short presentation from Sarah Schmidt from the Lake County Public Library, who's going to share some summer learning opportunities for our students. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baracco, for getting me on the agenda, and thank you, Dr. Malchow, for suggesting it. I am caught a little flat-footed at the moment. We are transitioning to a new events calendar at the library. So where I would have this wonderful, amazing events calendar to show you, I had nothing. And we are also, our graphic arts gentleman, the designer, just retired. And so I asked for some more lists of databases to show you all the hundreds of awesome things that we have that we're making available to the students. And he's somewhere in Florida. So he works part-time for us now, so I'm just gonna have to wait till May to get those. So I really do apologize. I would love to show you the amazing, this lovely list, but I can tell you a little bit about some of the things that we've done to try to help add value into schools. I will keep it short because there's a wrestling team behind me. We have done a couple of visits to the schools. I had the opportunity to go visit Kaler Middle School, I believe it was, back in November. And I showed the classes, some English classes, how to evaluate things that they could use for research papers. We call it the CRAAP test, the crack test, long before we were ever talking about fake news. That was really, we got to over a couple hundred students. I got to show them how the databases work, and they gave them a thorough workout. The only student I remember that stumped me a little bit was I was trying to find some resources on whether or not you should keep I think it's bulldogs, the ones that are usually forbidden in some communities. Anyway, we're talking about a lot of very opposing viewpoints and context, the controversial issues, trying to get them to see, here's your statistics for this argument, here it is for that argument. Programming for teens and children, you guys know that we always do summer reading. We're trying to combat that summer slide where your brain goes to mush for about 3 months in between. And that's why we have the summer reading program, which is starting right as soon as you guys get out of school. I know our children's librarians are trying to get into the schools to make some in-house visits and tell them about, we have a reptile show coming. We have, what else? My teams are going to be putting together a shadow puppet performance for the younger kids. We'll also be doing write a letter to your congressperson. We do lots of special kind of breakout programs, escape rooms, things like that. We found that whenever we can get the kids into the library, they tend to take a book with them. Everybody thinks they go for the DVDs. Not true. I know a lot of great kids and a lot of great kids who are just like, look, I don't want anybody else to see, but can you show me where engineering books are? Yeah, no problem. And all the kids in the audience, you can always come find me. I won't tell anybody. And we always get more student participation when we have those in-person visits, so we're working on that. And yeah, I think that's about it. I just wanted to give you an update. If you have any questions for me about the use of databases, I am always ready and willing to come into any classroom and help out with a project. I just want the teachers to know that, like, hey, I'm a resource. You can check me out for an hour and I can help you and your students.
I have a question as you were talking about your book clubs that are starting up this summer. Do we partner with you at all during the school year to help students through their middle school and high school novels? I know that sometimes my students are looking for, like, they're doing Wuthering Heights right now and struggling a little bit with it, so.
Usually now is about the time I start badgering your English departments to give me their list of summer reading, because they're always going to come to us and they're always going to come at the last minute. So I want to make sure I have a good 20 copies in the system of Rebecca, is it Wuthering Heights now?
Well, that's during the school year, not summer reading. It might be at a different level.
It's a great idea, though.
But I'm just thinking that I know at night when kids are looking to get together and if they have some sort of a resource with someone who understands the literature, understands the novel a little bit better,
Absolutely.
it's always nice, even if they're coming together as a reading circle, to know that they have some sort of a resource there.
Yeah, I have a teen advisory board that helps me put together programming. We did have a teen book club that I kind of disbanded because it just wasn't, very consistent attendance.
Sure.
But I am getting one started called Spilling Ink, where they get together and they write things. That has had excellent attendance so far.
Questions, comments?
Thank you for your help with our students and with our community. We appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, and Sarah, as a building principal, I always really appreciated you coming into the building because we were able not only to get those kids on the bubble into the library in the summer to read, but then we had the volunteers, the older kids that would volunteer. So it's a wonderful resource. And as you go around to the buildings, I hope that you're welcomed in and
Yeah, always.
can do some rah-rah-rah for us over the summer. Because like you say, that brain fade is tough, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I had one kid that was like, look, I want this summer, I really want that SAT score. And so I showed him, I won't mention names, we had the books, but then he was afraid he might not bring them back on time. So we have a resource that lets you take as many preparatory tests for SAT and ACT as you want. And he came back, I think this was last year, and he was like, I got it. I got a good score.
Yeah. Takes a village, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does.
Yes, it does. Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
And you're speaking for all the Lake County schools, or libraries, right?
Yeah, well, I'm speaking specifically for my branch. I know between ourselves and St. John, we kind of tag team to help you guys out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Stanish from Clark Middle School to talk about wrestling.
I have our two coaches here, Coach Adam Klawek and Coach Jason Putman. They're going to call up some of the wrestlers for conference championships.
First of all, thanks for having us today so we could recognize our 4 student athletes that we have with us tonight and their families. This being my first year as the head wrestling coach at Clark Middle School, along with my assistant, Mr. Putman, I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize the success that these 4 young men have had this past season, I should say. First of all, our first wrestler is Nam Dong, who could not make it tonight due to prior arrangements. But Nam was our 80-pound conference champion who finished the season 15-2 this year, which is a great accomplishment for a 6th grader in his weight division. Our second wrestler that finished conference this year was 14-2 at the end of the season. He also received our Outstanding Wrestler Award for the team as a wrestler on our team, and he was in the 115-pound weight class. And I know his parents are real proud of him, and so is Coach Putman and I. This is Rylan Reedy.
Riley.
Rylan.
Up
We're
here.
gonna go up here and get a picture in a little bit.
You start here this week.
Congratulations, keep it great.
Third wrestler.
Good job.
Go ahead. Third wrestler this evening is finished the season with a 14-0 record. great accomplishment for himself through his hard work. He was our 130-pound weight division, and this is Jacob Seuss.
Go there.
Oh, so proud of you. Way to go.
Great job, Jake.
Sure. Good job, Jake. Good job, buddy.
Our last wrestler, who's an 8th grader, so I'm losing him, which I'm not very happy about. He finished the season with 15-0 record. He was also our most valuable wrestler on our team. He won that award as our wrestler for the team, and he was our 215-pound weight, and that was Shannon Beal. So basically, your job to make sure he wrestles.
Okay.
The great work. Congratulations, Chip.
Good job.
Great job, Shep.
Way to go, man.
And this being our first year coaching together at Clark Middle School, we also want to point out that all 3 of these gentlemen, and in fact our 4th that couldn't make it, are all outstanding student athletes. They all excel, not only in the wrestling room and on the wrestling mat, but also in the classroom.
Very good.
Good sport.
It's very awesome. Are the parents in the audience of
They are.
these young men? Would you
They
stand
are all
up, please,
present.
for a round of applause? Because we know this happens because of your love and encouragement and your expectations, so thank you for that. It's awesome. Very good. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
You guys want to get a picture?
Again, thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, moving on. Thank you.
Okay, my next item is to seek professional leave for this week for Al and I to attend the statewide study council, which this meeting will be at Ball State in Muncie. It's been 22 years that Lake Central has been a member of the statewide study council, and for the next year, it's Lake Central's turn, or my turn, to serve as the president. The responsibilities of the president of this council are really to set meaningful agendas so that the other districts around the state want to attend. And it's not just the president, but there's an executive board which you serve for 4 years, and we have a member of the staff at Ball State who also guides us through this process, because once a year we do meet at Ball State. When we meet at Ball State, we generally have, most of the agenda is developed by the Ball State professor, because we have a couple of graduate students who present on their research. We also have generally a program from somewhere in the state that Ball State is working with them. The other 2 times a year, it's more of what's happening out in the other school districts, but this spring thing usually has a pretty decent Ball State flavor to it. So I seek board approval to attend that thing with Al on Thursday.
Move to approve?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and my 4th item is just to talk about the assigning an elementary school district to the new Castle Rock subdivision. This particular subdivision, if you looked at the map that I sent out in the packet, is located east of Beale Street, with Beale Street runs from 93rd, I think it runs all the way through to 81st, or close. Those roads get a little curvy when you start heading north there. It's west of Tapper, which is part of Kilkenny subdivision, Kilkenny Estates. So it's a strip that is adjacent to the Bibbage subdivision, but if you look at the map on our website, currently, it's inside what would currently be the coaling boundary. But since no holes are dug, the streets aren't built, and we're about full at coaling, we believe that this is a perfect opportunity to assign this new district to the Bibbage subdivision. Per Mr. Kill, the town manager in St. John, one of the streets, the main thoroughfare going through this new Castle Rock, will connect the little piece of Calumet that comes off 81st Avenue. And this neighborhood is just under a mile from Bibbage Elementary, and whereas the Kilkenny Estate folks who go to Coaling are traveling about 3.5 to 4 miles. So I don't think we're going to get any pushback because they really feel like they belong in Bibbage anyway. But I just wanted the board to be aware that that is our plan to, unless I hear objection this evening, to send a letter similar to we send to the folks at the preserves. Remember, the difference is the preserves is a little bit farther to Bibbage than it is to Coaling. But again, it's where we have space, and you know, we are pretty crunched at Coaling. I think we're okay everywhere else for right now. So that's our plan. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. G, did I leave anything out?
Nope. I agree.
Sounds good.
So I will, and we're keeping a file with the letters that we're sending out, should anyone seek to ask them, and then we will update that map on our website as soon as we can.
So then, am I correct in assuming that Calumet then will go straight through, whereas currently it's
Well,
not
he
connected?
didn't say that. He didn't
Okay.
say it was gonna go straight through to 93rd. Maybe Mrs. Tanis knows the answer. He just said that, he just said that that it would connect from the neighborhood to Calumet. And you know, Calumet comes out right by Bibbage. So basically what he was telling me is, yeah, that's a good idea because it's gonna be easy for them to get
Right.
to Bibbage. Now, remember, because they have to cross 81st, we don't have any walkers to Bibbage. So
Right.
we transport everybody because there's so much traffic on that street, and that would continue. But we would be transporting students over the next, I'm guessing, 5 years based on the size of the land, as that neighborhood gets developed to Bibbage. Because it doesn't need.
Actually, I will talk to you about it afterwards. It's just something that I thought of about Bibbage when you said that. I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Barocco? All right, thank you. And Mr. Gandolfi?
Thank you. My first item is to just seek your approval for the personnel recommendations that are in your packet this evening.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments? Really appreciated the extra form that was in there. It gives me a lot of comfort reading that, so thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Thank you. My second item, I did put a little document in front of you this evening. That is the comparison of in-house to outside coaches in the corporation. I believe that someone asked that maybe a meeting or two ago. Without going through the entire list, I will just say that it looks like around 61% or so of our coaches are actually in-house coaches, which means that they actually work for us during the day. Our lay coaches or outside coaches means that they have other jobs outside of the corporation and only coach for us. They don't work for us during the day. So those are our totals as of this current school year. That can change by the time we get to August, but that's where we're at as of right now.
So in-house is in district, not necessarily in building. So for example, I could
That's
work at the
correct.
middle school but teach at the high school and I'm considered in-house?
That's correct. Yeah, based on employment.
Any questions for Mr. Gandolfi?
Is there a way to find out, like, are a lot of our in-house coaches in district but not in building?
Not too many. I mean, I'm sure that we have a few. It's difficult to teach at the middle school and coach at the high school because the times are so difficult, although we do have a few folks that are actually elementary teachers that are coaching at the high school. It's a little bit more doable. But I could just add a column to this document and run that out if that information is.
No, I was just curious. I mean, obviously, if there's a handful over
It's not a huge, but it's a
50%.
handful.
Do we find that there's middle school staff that would want to coach at the high school, but because of the time, they can't?
I believe that we
Check
do
into
have
that?
some folks that would
Maybe
love to
over
work. would love to
outside
work.
coaches?
Yeah, I mean, we have some folks that would love to work at the high school. It's just with the start time and end time, a lot of the middle schools, they run a lot of their practices in the morning. So, it's difficult for them when that day ends so late.
I'm just wondering if we're looking at these 36 outside coaches, how many of those spots could be filled by people in the district? You know what I mean? I was just curious if that was one of the detriments.
It could be a factor, yeah. I couldn't say how much of a factor, but it definitely is a factor on their ability to get here. Someone would have to supervise those kids, especially if they were head coaches. Someone would have to supervise those kids because those practices start now by 2:40, 2:45, and those practices wouldn't be able to start until probably, if everything went perfect, 4:20. So you'd have a supervision issue.
And of course, there would be construction or training, and then...
And they wouldn't be able to practice their kids in the morning? There's no facilities at the high school or just nothing?
Well, to practice here in the morning, you're starting practice at 5 o'clock, 5:15.
Actually, here I know.
Yeah, they have, obviously our swimmers do it all the time.
Right.
And there are some other folks that do it. But I think that you'd see your overall, especially in sports where we do not cut, I think you'd see your overall numbers go down significantly if they thought for the next 5 months they had to start practice at 6 in the morning. Swimmers, they're a unique breed. They just like to practice twice a day. Once in the morning and once in the afternoon.
It's in the blood, huh?
Yeah, we could have asked the wrestlers, but they already left. But I got a hard time believing that those wrestlers are going to want to get up and knock heads at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, boy.
Are the outside coaches spanned across all seasons, or do we find that one season has more outside coaches than another?
I think they're spanned across all seasons, but we don't have equal number of coaches in all seasons. So obviously, anytime that we run a football program at the high school or the middle school, there are more coaches because there are a lot more students. So in those seasons, you have a tendency to have more coaches from the outside because there are just more coaches on your overall staff during that particular season. So, football probably skews the numbers a little bit.
Do we repost outside coaches' jobs each year, or do they, like for inside people to be able to apply, or do they keep theirs every year?
We do not post every year like was happening in the district many years ago. On the other hand, they're lay coaches, so we don't owe them. Everybody understands that it's a year-to-year job. So our head coaches look at that every year, who we hire, who's available, who wants to get on staff, and we look at those numbers every single year. There's no promises of one year to the next.
But for a new person who comes into the district, and even if it's an outside coach of a, let's say, high school sport, they have no chance of getting that position as an in-district person because that spot's already taken. Do we have any opportunity for our newer teachers to be able to apply for those positions to get people in-house and lower the numbers?
When we have a posting, usually a head coach reviews their staff every single year, just as our athletic department, reviews their staff and does an evaluation every year too. So if we have a great individual that enters the teaching ranks at one of our buildings, and our coaches usually know about those folks because there's not a million of them out there. We work with our head coaches, work with those individuals to get them on staff. It's not uncommon for a head coach to say, hey, we have an English teacher now that can fill this role, and says to the lay coach, I realize it's a stretch for you. You work 8 hours a day and you're scrambling to get here, and make that change. But that is not automatic.
So then the head coaches are the responsible party for
The head coaches fill
selecting
their
their
coaching staff.
coaching staff members. And then, okay.
And the head coaches also support the middle school program. So the head football coach supports and is involved in the 3 or really 6 middle school football programs. Same thing occurs with volleyball and everybody else. The dance coach is involved in the 3 middle school dance programs. The basketball coach is involved in the middle school basketball programs.
So there is some connections there, which is important.
Yes. We do the same thing for our camps in the summer. It's all a combination of working together.
And you know, I think at the last board meeting, we talked about getting a report from the middle school athletic directors. Is that going to be feasible?
Do you mean an end of the season report similar to what Chris does at the high school?
Yeah, I think so. Personally, I think it just adds credence and value to the program that we care enough to ask about it and hear about it. So it wouldn't need to be a big PowerPoint display. I'm not talking anything like that, but just to summarize how the year has gone. I like what Mr. Inyard does, where he talks about the proceeds, the expenses, the A students, those types of things.
And that report can come from either the building principal, his designee, or the athletic director. Remember, we've also discussed here previously that our middle school athletic directors teach full-time.
Correct.
Very different than the responsibilities at the high school. So, you know, there's a lot of work that is a collaborative effort between the building principal and the athletic director and the head coaches. Where at the high school, you know, you have an athletic director and his staff that do not teach all day long, that oversee all programs. So it's different, it's very different.
So our head coaches are required to support the middle school programs and hire staff, but our AD does not support the middle school programs.
Yeah, he meets with those 3 athletic directors and 3 building principals monthly.
And our IEDs and our principals, you know, they prefer in-house coaches because, you know, it leads to better participation, and generally speaking, they're better with handling kids.
Well, and that's
Not
why I'm
always.
asking, I know some districts, when they have outside coaches each year at the end of the season or whenever they repost in case there's people within the district who would like to take on that position. Nobody's gonna come on and say, hey, I wanna take so-and-so's head coaching varsity position, but if it's posted, they may apply for it, is all I'm saying, and we might get some more in-house people that might be willing to do that.
Well, I mean, I can run some numbers for you, but, you know, to be totally honest, the number of folks that are applying for coaching positions is not as significant as it was 10 years ago. We post coaching positions now, as you very well know, and don't get any applicants in-house or out-of-house. So, you know, the discussion always was, once you cut those lay coaches go and you repost those positions, you may get no one.
Yeah, and what ends up happening is they go work someplace else because they want to coach and they're motivated, and they're generally club coaches too, so they have pretty good skill sets. I think what's changed is in the past, at least when I think back to my days, you stepped in and volunteered for a year or two and worked with that varsity coach and then earned the next available spot. It sort of became an automatic way to get in, and then because you were working with the varsity coach, you sort of knew their program. It doesn't seem like we have as many volunteers as we once had, and that sort of way of getting your foot in the door.
Well, and honestly, at the high school, I mean, when you look at the length of season and what people do now regarding preconditioning, post-conditioning, you know, a lot of those head coaches are working with their athletes 10 months out of the year. I mean, it's rare to find a significant number of athletes that are 3-sport athletes any longer, the same way that it's difficult to find coaches that are coaching all 3 seasons because they spend a lot of time with those athletes. Very, very different than, you know, when the majority of us were in school.
They're very specialized now.
It's the way that the market has gone in terms of athletics. And you see that even in our baseball programs, our park department baseball programs, our traveling baseball teams, our swimmers, you know, they usually stick to that one sport. And you may get a little carryover with footballs and wrestling, you may get carryover with cross-country and track and field, you know, but we're not seeing nowhere near the number of 2- and 3-sport athletes that we saw even 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where there were lots of 2- and 3-sport athletes.
Is it common to have a middle school AD that teaches a full-day schedule and doesn't have any assistance during the day anytime?
It's been the common practice in the Lake Central School Corporation.
And Lake
for a long time.
Central, but.
And I haven't done any research on other middle schools or other middle schools in our conference.
I just think it's one heck of a burden to put on someone to a full-time teaching job and then no breaks to help with the AD preparation. Maybe I'm wrong, but I personally would like to see at least 1 hour dedicated to that. You know, I don't know if they still have homerooms at the middle?
Well, we're
school?
looking at, we're looking at a little bit of time for 2017 to 18, but 1 hour is very different than a homeroom in
Well,
terms
see,
of
and
time.
I'm just, yeah.
Right,
the
that's why,
terms.
I mean, you know, I wouldn't want to say 1 hour when our homeroom is 24 minutes.
Oh, well, no, that wouldn't be worth it.
So it's, you know,
I just don't want to burn out these young people. I mean, they've got enough coming at them with, you know, things going on at the state level, at the federal level, and then all those other challenges, so.
also remember that, you know, and this gets complicated, and I realize that, but our middle school athletic directors are coaches. They coach in the corporation for us. Okay, so Chris Enyard, the athletic director at the high school, he can't coach for us, he runs the program.
Mhm.
Okay, but at least 2 out of 3 of our athletic directors literally coach for us in a sport, in a season, either at the high school or at the middle school. So the job description is
Wow.
significantly different.
I was going to say, so what does their job description consist of then? What do they do for that stipend?
They schedule.
Scheduling.
They schedule. They also work with their
Supervise.
coaches. They sit in on any interview process. They work, you know, they do a lot of those sort of things, but yeah, they do have an opportunity, and 2 out of 3 coach for us.
They manage all the finances of it also?
Well, a lot of the finances is handled by the building principal as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Really.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Comparison, thanks for that comparison. And Director of Primary Education.
Thank you. My first item is to seek your approval of the professional leave requests that were included in your board packet.
Move to approve.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Thank you. I would also like to seek your approval of the field trip request that was also in your packet.
Also so moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Thank you. My next item is just to share some information on the Indiana Literacy Early Intervention Grant. This grant was first implemented in the 97-98 school year, and its purpose is to improve the reading skills of young readers at risk of reading failure. Until this year, it's been a competitive grant, and so Lake Central has not applied, and but beginning with this school year, the funds will be evenly distributed among accredited public, non-public, and charter schools, as long as their grant application meets the requirements of the grant. So this year we did apply and recently had our grant approved. They're very specific on what you can use the grant funds for. There are 4 things. You can fund specific training aligned to your core reading program. You can purchase additional books for a leveled book library. You can purchase a reading intervention program that focuses on the 5 components of reading and the training to go with that program, or you can purchase a diagnostic tool that aligns with your core reading program and the training that goes with that. So we developed our plan with the reading specialists. We all sat down and looked at what we have that was working well and where we could use some additional support. We currently use a leveled literacy intervention and have found success with that. We've had it for probably about 7 years, and as you can imagine, it has books that go home and come back, and some resources that they use in the classroom, and so after about 7 years, some go home and don't come back, and things get lost. So we are bringing everybody up to speed and purchasing the materials to get them back to where they need to be. We're also going to train and purchase the materials for Wilson Language Foundations. This is an intervention that focuses on foundational skills. Again, this is something that we do use in Lake Central already, but as time has gone on, Many of our reading specialists were not trained in foundations and don't have all of the kits, so we're going to shore that up with the training and the materials. And then Coling Reading Specialists found a new intervention, the Comprehension Toolkit, and they've used it this year and found it to be successful. It kind of picks up where leveled literacy falls off and really focuses on comprehension, the component. So we are going to use those funds to purchase the materials and the training for the Comprehension Toolkit.
For all schools or?
For all schools, all 6 elementary,
And
all
all
elementary, because it's for students in K through 2.
Oh, okay.
Your level literacy intervention, is that individual, group, one-on-one, teacher to student? What is
Done with the reading specialists, generally small group, occasionally one-on-one depending, but generally small group, as is foundations and also the comprehension toolkit.
So then the training is for the reading specialists?
Correct.
Okay.
How are these students identified for the early intervention program?
Through the assessment that we have, we use the TRC and some of the DIBELS-like assessments and teacher recommendation. And they usually are in the IEP process, and so go to see the reading specialist as a part of that.
I noticed that there's training for reading specialists and teachers. Is there any parent training if the student is, needing this early intervention? Is there any sort of training that we provide for parents to be able to help their child at home?
Not as part of this grant, but through the IEP process, when parents come in, sit down and meet with the teacher and the parent, that is part of the process. We talk about what can the parent do at home to support the student.
Any other questions? I had a question. So all the training then is really for the reading specialists, the way I read this. And will some of that information trickle down? I mean, I know that Wilson is a very unique program, but for example, from the comprehension toolkit, there's got to be some strategies there for reading comprehension that would float into the general ed classroom?
Actually, the foundation that that is pretty specialized, so we will not have classroom teachers trained in that. However, the comprehension toolkit training, when I priced out sending them to the training or having a trainer come in, it was cheaper to have them come here. So yes, we're going to have all of the reading specialists, but we're going to fill the room, so to speak, with some other classroom teachers.
Okay. And then up here, and it's funny because we were just talking about this when we were going through our board policies, but when it talks about an evidence-based core reading program, what is our core reading program for these
Journeys.
students? So you're talking about the publication of...
The Basel Reader.
I see. Journeys. But there's other things that happen in addition to Journeys, all your
Absolutely.
interventions
Right,
and
but
all
that
the
is our
strategies.
core reading program.
And who's the publisher of that?
That is
That's okay if you don't remember.
Houghton Mifflin Harcourt.
Okay. All right.
They're all one now, right?
They keep buying,
Good ten-
they
Yeah,
just
they are.
keep adding
10-name
names
publishing
on.
company.
Pearson buys them all, then. Yeah. All right, thank you for that, appreciate it.
Okay, I do have one other thing. I wanted to share the kindergarten enrollment, and I've given you a little chart comparing last year to this year. As you can see, we are down, all set about 48 students. Coling had a pretty good reduction, and Watson had a dramatic reduction. Since that time, we have enrolled 20 additional kindergarten students. I will say that weekly, we're still getting enrollees. We do have 11 of those, and they're included in that would like half-day kindergarten. And we have 18 that are requesting early entrance testing. And we will do that.
So 439, that does not include the 20 additional kindergarten students that came in after that date?
No, I wanted the chart to show you the actual 2 days of enrollment.
So that's 459. And then the 18 requesting early entrance?
Are not included in
Okay,
there.
so that could be another 18.
How early are those students that are required, that are requesting early entrance?
Most of ours do have birth dates in August, but there are a few, they have to be 5 by September 30th for us to do early entrance testing. There are a few September birthdays in there, but the bulk of them still are August birthdays.
And talk to me about your plans with the half-day kindergarten for 11 students. What are you thinking there?
Well, as we've always, it's always been a smaller classroom. As of now, we are still planning to have a half-day classroom. It really is cost neutral for the corporation, and it makes a handful of parents pretty happy. That is something that they like. So at this point, we still have plans for half-day. We always talk if the numbers get really low, because sometimes we'll add a few more to half-day, and then some will decide to go full-day, some will decide to wait until next year. At some point, the numbers would get so low that we probably would not have it, but that's right in the ballpark part before we've always had a classroom.
Are all 11 at the same school, or do they get to put at the same school?
We do put them at Vivage, is where it has been, and more than likely will be this year because they have the room.
And do we provide transportation, or do the
One
parents?
way.
Okay. So no matter where the child lives at in the district, we will provide that transportation?
One way.
Right, so I mean, is it possible that one kid rides a bus?
Well, what they do is they go to their, what there would be their home school, and then we transport them from there.
Thank you.
And so this would be a half-time salaried person, including the, do they get benefits too?
Everything is in half.
Half.
Well, you know, my concern would be having 11 in a half-day classroom, and I had the same concern last year, but yet we have large numbers in other classrooms.
My
around the
concern is
district.
though, having those students choose to go somewhere else, and now we've alienated Good Lake Central.
I don't think there's anyone else that offers a half-day kindergarten in the state of Indiana that I'm aware of. Nobody else offers it.
Well, the other thing that I consider too is they are still responsible for all of the same standards that are full day. So in order for them to teach all of those to those students, the smaller numbers helps them do the same thing in half the time.
Oh, and I understand all of that. I mean, I totally get all that. I just philosophically disagree with it because of the needs of the other students in our corporation and class sizes.
All right, it's only been about 2 years since you weren't required to offer half-day kindergarten.
But most school districts stopped it years ago, I believe.
I was gonna say, what school
It's
district?
only been.
They could
It's
have.
only been
It's only been
ones
2
are-
years. You had to offer it to your folks
In order to get the,
in order to get the funding.
right.
Remember when the kindergarten was a separate line item? Only when they rolled it into the regular funding formula did they give you the option.
Which has only been about 2 years now, maybe 3.
Yeah, 3.
If they were ninth graders, I might think
Couldn't come
differently,
up.
but when we have the potential of having these students for, 13 years, or maybe not, that's the
Oh, I
philosophy.
understand, I
And
understand.
we're not losing money on the program.
I understand.
Which is the other piece.
I'm just looking at the needs of the others, so.
Do all of
I'm
the
not
other
saying you're
schools in the area offer half-day kindergarten?
I don't know who offers that.
Haven't for 3 years. No, we're the only one.
Public schools,
Right, we're the only public school.
parochial schools offer it,
Do they?
which is where I don't want to force students to.
Who offers it?
I know that
Down the
that
street. they
Plum
do.
Creek
Oh, do
Academy,
they?
they offer it. That one I'm not sure, the other ones I wouldn't say that like confirmed it.
Okay, well, thank you. You're the decision maker, we can just share our philosophies.
That's right.
All right, Ms. Sarah. Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
apologize. I'm sorry, so now that you've got me thinking, if that's the case, is there a way to find out what our cost is? And I understand that it might be very cost effective, but I'm thinking transporting these kids from all these different elementary schools to one place for 11 kids, things like that. If no one else is offering it in the state of Indiana, while I don't want to lose 11 parents, please understand, I want to contain, I would love to offer this for our students, but like Janice is saying, I think we need to look at this if we're looking at class, I don't know what kindergarten sizes are for next year, but even if we're 22, if we're looking at a
They're not at 22.
higher, lower.
16 and 18.
Yeah, but I would say this, instead of speculating that
Right, I
people
just
are
like
potentially
speculating.
watching us, I don't think we should speculate that no one else in the state offers.
Right,
half-day
that's why I'm
kindergarten.
just asking
I think that
who
we can
does,
do our
yeah.
own data and
Right.
come up with our own research.
Yeah, that's
and
what
bring
I
that
think.
discussion back. But I don't
Yes.
think that we should just speculate on who has it and doesn't.
That's what I'm saying, could we maybe get some, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it may be our best option to do the 11, but I'm just saying, what's the data so that the perceptions, like you said,
Right.
we can give.
And I could
that's all.
actually run you a budget. I can show you an actual budget.
Sure, and like I said, I'm sure it'll all come out cost effective, but that way we can,
Well, and I'm not
Show
saying
that.
necessarily that the staff member that we would say that we would put somewhere else would be in a kindergarten level, Sandy. I mean, I know some of these, third grade
That's what you have
classrooms
to
are
remember,
really
that
high.
person wouldn't exist, nor would the revenue from the state.
yeah, and like I said, I'm not saying that the best thing is to cut a half-day kindergarten program by any means. I think parents should be able to be allowed that. I'm just curious, I don't know what schools around the state are doing, or schools around the area. I don't know when it comes to kindergarten.
Yeah, I don't know about the privates. I don't know.
I don't have any idea.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Yes, for my first item, I am seeking your approval for the professional leave request as presented.
So moved.
Second out there?
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Thank you. For my second item, I am seeking your approval for the field trip request as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Excuse me. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. For my third item, in your board packet, you should have received a list of the textbook adoption selections, starting with science. We are actually going to wait a year on the fifth grade science. That's partially because we took the second year to explore the math, and so they want to get a good handle on that before we dive into the science. Some of the fifth grade textbook selections that were out there really hadn't changed a whole lot from last year, and so we're hopeful that maybe by waiting a year, there might be some better opportunities out there for us to decide upon as well. For 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they decided to go with the Interactive Science by Pearson. This is the same publisher that they had previously, but they did some nice updates to the online resources, as well as incorporating some of the literacy process standards and scientific inquiry process standards. The other thing they like is that they are consumable books, which tend to work better with their middle school students. They can use some of those CRISP strategies to write notes and make questions and things like that. The other thing that they like is they're chunked by themes. And so with the exception of the 6th grade year, we do have state testing going on. I think that for 7th and 8th grade, they will cover all the standards, but they're going to group them thematically, so it's a little easier for the students to process. So those are the positives that they saw with the Pearson Interactive Science. At the high school level, they showed a little bit of love to a lot of publishers, if you noticed on the list. For chemistry, we're going with the Pearson book. For honors chemistry and ACP1, they'll be going with Holt, Mifflin, Harcourt with modern chemistry. AP chemistry and ACP2 is going with chemistry, the Central Science AP 14th edition, which is a Pearson book. Physics is also going with a Pearson book. AP physics is going with the Cengage College physics book. Environmental science is going with Pearson. And AP environmental science is going with Bedford, Freeman, and Worth. And then for regular biology, we are adopting Pearson. Honors biology is adopting Discovery Science. AP biology is going with the Pearson AP edition. Zoology is going with Glencoe McGraw-Hill. Anatomy and physiology is going with Pearson. And then ICP is going with McGraw-Hill. And I've always told them that using the rubric that was also included in your packet, I'm okay, even though that sounds like a lot of jumping around with new publishers, as long as you're picking the best resource for your students. And so they were looking at things like the virtual labs. They were looking at the academic vocabulary. Many of the new ones, because of the link between the math and the science process standards, have connections to math and other application type problems. And then a lot of them also integrated with Canvas, which is our learning management system. And so for all those reasons, those were why they chose the books that they did. Our process is that we have a group of about 10 teachers that are appointed by LCTA. They go to Textbook Caravan, narrow down to its top 2 choices, and then we actually brought all the science teachers from across the district at the secondary level in to view the top 2 publishers, and then they fill out the rubric and reply, and then that's how we make our decision on the textbooks.
Do we set those textbooks out for the community to see it all before we approve them?
We do not.
We talked about that. That's one of the board policies we mentioned. Is there a community member on, or a parent on the textbook selection?
There is not. Right now, it's just teachers and department chairs.
It's pretty important to have that
I
parent
was
or
gonna
the
say,
community.
I thought it said
input
that
in
there were
those.
parents and community members on the committees as well.
But I think that's something that we talked
On
about.
textbook adoption?
Yes.
Yeah. What
That's what I
what
thought.
qualifications do they bring?
What was that?
What qualifications do they bring?
For example, I just sat through textbook adoption in my district, and the parent was concerned, I mean, we even bring novels to them, and the parent was concerned with some of the language and some of the content that was in some of the materials, and had valid points. While I might not think that way as a parent, and I'm open to, if there's a swear word in a book, you know, just because I'm okay with it, that parent was not, absolutely was not. So when you're looking at the money that's going out there, I mean, to be able to, I don't know much about science and chemistry, but I know we have a lot of educators, not only in our own schools that looked at, but outside people that may have used these resources and said, oh, you know what, they do a really nice job and make it nice and shiny and pretty, but once we used that textbook, it was horrible. And again, once you've purchased it, and I don't know anything about these, please understand, I'm not saying that any of these are good, bad, or ugly, but sometimes you have people that are willing to give that opinion from their side, their feasibility, that's all. Not that it
I
would
would be
make a
more inclined to
decision.
make our staff members on the textbook committee check with schools who've already adopted that book, if they have, but I mean, it could be a new book, and then you don't have a track record.
I've just noticed from looking at textbooks recently that a lot of the publisher companies are taking what they have, and because they want the new name or the Common Core, that book was no more Common Core than it was 3 years ago when it was published, honestly, except now they have Common Core stickers and Common
We're
Core.
in a similar
you know.
boat. With science, Next Gen is kind of the thing that the nation has gone to, but Indiana does its own thing when it comes to
Correct.
academic standards. So, you know, one thing that we talked about is that, you know, a lot of these textbook publishers will just slap the Indiana sticker on it when it really isn't meeting our standards completely. And we've also talked about how the textbook is not your curriculum. So if there are some gaps, then it's our job to fill those in and come up with plans to do that consistently.
And then I guess that's my next question is how much are these textbooks going to get used? I know that my own children have new math textbooks and they're working out of packets. So are we going to use these textbooks? How much are teachers required to use the textbooks? Because if we're going to pay out all this money for all these resources, you know, are they available digitally? What else is going on with these?
We always make sure that we adopt a version that has either the hard and the digital available, or for example, with some of the science teachers, for biology, they felt that their old textbooks, which are still in fairly decent shape, were perfectly fine to use for the content, but then they want to bring in a new online portion. So for example, if you look at the honors biology, Discovery Science is an online platform, so they're going to keep the biology textbooks from this past year, use them as class sets, and allow students to check them out if they want to, but the online content, which then the kids can take home with them and whatnot, or they can incorporate into Canvas, is what they like because that was more updated.
Any other questions? From my experience, the parents that were on the textbook adoption were not so much to come in and say this is not a good model or anything because of my experience, but it was more as a parent going home to use this, here's the practicality, and it was, I think, just a matter of transparency and opening it up to the community. Again, we would select 1 or 2 parents, they would take the materials home, read through them, and that was it. You know, they would give us their suggestions, but it never drove the decision the committee made. It was just an offer to give parental input, and I think we'll have to clear that up in our board policy.
Well, there's danger in involving people if you're really not going to use their opinion to drive a decision though, too. I mean, you
Well,
don't
then
want
we
to
need
make
to-
people feel like their time was wasted, so
Then we
we have
need-
to balance that. And if we had parents who were experts in the content, then they could possibly provide some
Yeah, we do.
meaningful input, but just to have a parent say, take a look and see what you think.
Oh.
I mean, it'd be like looking at Chinese for me, so, I mean,
That's how we did it. Then we'll just have to address the board policy, because the board policy does say the community members, so. We're just trying to align our practices with our board policies, so.
Understand?
Are these textbooks classroom sets or are they one for every student in the course?
is that coming?
It varies.
Over that one.
For the middle school, it is a set for every student. Every child will get to take home that consumable thematic book. At the high school, depending upon the subject, some of them felt they just needed class sets and then the online copy being available. And then if a student needed to check out a hardbound book, they can do that. So I'm working with the department chairs to go through that.
What's our plan with the consumables if that middle school child loses that workbook? Do parents pay $10 every time they need a new workbook? What's going to happen?
Yes, if a student loses any textbook.
Or, I don't know if $10 is the amount, please understand that just as.
If a student loses any textbook, then they have to help pay the replacement cost.
So what about that day in class then? I just want to make sure that we're set, like if my student loses his workbook, can he still work in class the next day? If he's lost his workbook, or is that something that will be replaced for that student? I mean, I just want to make sure the kids don't have a reason to say, oh, sorry, I don't have my workbook today.
No. Our bookkeepers, for the most part, keep a stockpile of some additional books, so that way if a student does misplace one, then they're billed for it, but they immediately get that new book. And a lot of times the teachers will work with the department chairs too to make sure they have access to those books if a student loses one, which we do tend to have happen sometimes.
And my last thing is that I'm gonna say it again, if we're going digital copies on these textbooks, and there's so much out there that I'm just gonna throw out there again that I think we need to consider about what we're gonna do to get either iPads in kids' hands or some sort of technology in kids' hands so that they are ready to go for the global society that they're gonna need to compete in. I don't know what that looks like, but if we're going to digital copies and we're doing a lot of things online now and trying to teach them, part of their learning is learning their own resources, whether it be a textbook or online or wherever, we might need to start considering where we're gonna go with that.
Okay. And we, you know what, it was more the parent would bring the perspective of the community. After we reviewed the policy, then I remembered what it was, so. But thank you for bearing with us. And Ms.
Actually, I'm
I'm sorry.
Just as a carryover from last year, as I've mentioned before at previous board meetings, our 5th grade went with the Ready Math for this year and then piloted the investigations because last year the 5th grade investigations was not ready. After piloting the units from Pearson, the committee decided to stick with the Ready Math. They felt that it did align better to the Indiana standards and was a bit more rigorous, so we're going to continue to stay with that publication. And then the other thing you had in your board packet was, as I mentioned last year, with the high school, they wanted 2 books from Cengage for the pre-calculus class and the AP calculus class. However, in speaking with the publisher, they were transparent with us to let us know that in the fall a new edition was coming out, and so that we may as well possibly wait for that new edition to come out because all the resources and things would be updated even a little bit further. And so they are going to adopt that book now that the updated edition is available. So those.
And which one is that again?
That's for math for pre-calculus trig and for AP calculus.
I'm just gonna voice another concern again, then we have to get away from the packets. If we are going to make sure we're purchasing all these new textbooks.
What are you talking about packets? What
Because
is
the
that?
kids come home with these workbook packet, or these worksheet packets for a lot of these classes. And if that's going to go away, I'm hoping with the new textbooks, but depending on how thick these textbooks are, I know the pre-calc books are already like this, and our kids' backpacks are 60, 70, 80 pounds. The high schoolers with these books, if we're gonna spend this money on these types of books, it's just gonna be a shame to see these high-level kids coming home again with workbook packets. That's all I'm saying. I'm okay with the textbooks. I just think we need to make sure that we are utilizing them to their fullest.
We're having discussions with the high school administration as well as the high school math department here to try to correct some.
And that's all across, not just math. Please understand, that's across the board. I'm not just picking on math.
Anything else?
No? Any other questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
For my 4th item, we have a couple of middle school handbook changes, and for that, I'm going to bring up Joe Stanish, our assistant principal at Clark.
All right, good evening, everyone. We have a few changes to the middle school handbook for you. They were included, I guess, in a packet that was provided to you. The first item, I have a change.
Let's call it a handout.
Okay, all right. For the first item, I have a change to number 26, which is the gambling and selling portion of it. For the second item, I have a change to number 45, which is tobacco. And finally, my third item, under the attendance policy portion of the handbook as well. Are there any questions?
For this whole highlighted area, that's all being changed?
That has to, that updated section has to meet up with Indiana code.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So it's just, basically, we're just updating to make sure that that
Yes.
matches.
Any other questions for Mr. Stanish? And then the last item that was in the middle school packet I'll speak to, it was an update to the Lake Central Middle School bell schedule. So there was a copy that looked like this within your packet. Really the only change that's taking place there is with our 5th grade schedule. As I mentioned previously, we're going to be departmentalizing the 5th grade. So what students will have is a homeroom first thing in the morning. It'll actually be a little bit longer because with our students transitioning into 5th grade, sometimes that organizational time first thing in the morning can be beneficial to them. And so we're actually pretty excited about that. And then what they'll end up having is a math and then a language arts block, or sometimes it'll go language arts and then math. But basically it'll be a double period similar to what the middle school students have for language arts now. And then there'll be lunch in between them. So just a small change to the 5th grade schedule, but just wanted to make you aware of that. Any questions?
Any questions on the student handbook either?
Thank you.
I think we're good. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And then,
Can I ask one quick question? With changing the blocks there, the math and the ELA blocks, have teachers been trained to be able to use that additional time, or what are we doing with teachers to help them prepare for that 5th grade?
so they were already used to a lengthier block of the language arts, so it's really just trying to make sure that they're cutting back a little bit of time. Some of that time was support, which is going to be built a bit into that homeroom period now. With the math, what we were finding is that the teachers needed more time, and so they were actually teaching through the homeroom at times. So this almost mirrors up with what they used to have in the old math block, which was about an hour plus the 17 minutes of homeroom that they used to have. But we are going to do some work so that way we are training, and that's part of the benefit of the departmentalization. Instead of working with 30 teachers, now we'll be focusing on just 15 for each subject area.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions? And then for my final item, I'm going to bring up Mr. Bagley, our high school principal.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As a result of our discipline committee meeting and discussing the rule book, we have the following changes that we want to amend to the code of conduct. The first change is tobacco, and amending that to include tobacco and vaping, as we've seen more vaping happening this past year. Number 2 is changing the naming of the student assistance program to the alternate to expulsion plan, which brings it more in line with the Indiana code. And the third change, the physical education policy, students were losing credit on the 5th. We're changing that to 10 because the students are meeting more often with the new bell schedule. And your questions.
Could you repeat that last one again? I'm sorry.
The students meet 3 times. They meet more often now.
For PE.
For PE. And that is as is a participation grade, and they have to dress out. We have some students that are not dressing out, not participating. If they don't have supporting documentation, as in note from a doctor as why they can't participate, then they can lose credit for not participating in the class.
And I guess my question would go back to the behavior versus the knowledge of the content. Are we, these kids that aren't dressing, are we doing something to address the behavior?
Correct.
Are we
We are.
working with counselors? What do we do when a student doesn't dress the first time, the second?
First, try to address it with the teacher, tries to handle it with the student, then contacting the parent and working with them to tell them, hey, we want your child to be successful. It's a PE class. They have to demonstrate the skill. If they're teaching badminton, they have to dress out and participate in badminton. If they're doing something in, if they're doing a layup in basketball, they have to demonstrate that skill. So they have to dress out, so it's an important component to it. I mean, it's the basic building block of the class. They have to dress out. So yes, we do meet with those students. If it cuts to our level at the administrative level, with deans and the assistant principals, we'll work with the student progression, discipline to try and get them to change the behavior. But we're actually making it a little more lenient because they are meeting more often. And of course, if they had some sort of supporting medical documentation that said they couldn't participate, we would either work around it with alternate assignments, or we would look to perhaps reschedule them for another semester if they weren't able to participate. And we perhaps have them take a different class, perhaps take their health or something like that, and get that out of the way, and then come back and take the PE class. If they have a medical condition that would prevent them from participating.
So the SAP, Student Assistance Program, is different than the, I think you call it the IACT? Is that
That's completely
K through
different.
12?
That's all
Sorry.
different.
Student Assistance Program is for those children that are heading down the alternative ed route.
It's students that have made a major disciplinary
Disciplinary.
infraction.
Only disciplinary.
Where we are working with them to try and keep them in school on a probationary status. We're trying to get them, they understand they've messed up, they've not hurt anyone else, they've not, they may have made a bad decision in using a prohibitive substance, and we're working with the parents and working with the student and trying to keep them in school and get them to be successful. But they're understanding that this is a last chance.
Okay, whereas those names.
There's a lot of acronyms.
The IAT, which is what we always call it, but you call it, I think, the IAT.
Well,
Right, I know. Is that the K through 12, so the IAT at the high school is
Well, that's more of the RTI.
intervention,
Interventions
RTI,
for
okay.
students struggling.
Very good. I want to make sure I understood those terms.
It's tough to keep with them.
I apologize, I have one other concern. At the end of our new policy, it says absences can be made up for credit per discretion of the teacher. So if I have a teacher who likes me and lets me make it up, I'm good, but if you have a teacher that doesn't, you don't get to make it up?
Oh, they're pretty consistent on that.
And I
that can be-
understand that, but this is saying it's the teacher's discretion, so technically a teacher could say, and I'm not saying our teachers would, but I've been in education for a lot of years, and I know that there's some teachers that do. I'm just concerned about that. I think it should they should be able to be made up, or they shouldn't. I just don't know if we should leave that to a teacher's discretion. That's my own opinion.
That's more of a student misses a day, and we have the academic assistance portion where we have a PE teacher that can have all the students that have missed make up their missed assignment. And since it's a participation, then they would make up whatever unit they're on. So we have a mechanism in place that students can, if they're absent, sick, or something like that, they can come in and make it up.
So in that case, they can then. It's not necessarily the discretion of the teacher. I can go in during my time as a student and I can go make that up, correct?
Yeah.
So it's not at the discretion of the teacher?
Yeah, you say for instance, you have a student that is absent and needs to make up the assignment, they make up the assignment. If you have a student that's purposely not dressing,
I don't like that. Personally, I don't like that last statement. I think that leaves too much out there, personally. I do, because whether it's a truancy, if that kid has a behavior issue that they're truant, or the kid has a parent that's calling in and that kid is at home watching cartoons, but the parent calls in and, you know what I mean? Personally, I don't like that last statement. But.
So how would you recommend it be altered? What would you suggest?
I don't know if I have a suggestion at this point. I just don't think that that absences should be made up at discretion of the teacher. I think every student should have the ability under our code or our policies or whatever it is we have. If we say that truancies can't be made up, then they can't be made up. I just don't think we should be leaving. That's the same thing as when I go to open houses and I hear teachers say, oh, sorry, I can't accept late homework. It's a board policy. It is not a board policy, and I don't agree with that. This is, again, there's certain things I want teachers to have all the discretion in the world, but this, I don't think should be one of them. That would be like me as a math teacher saying I'm going to choose who I'm going to let make up here or there. I don't think that I think our policy should be for all students, not at the discretion.
Good point, good point. I tend to agree with that, yeah, I see what you're saying. So how will you manage that?
I can look at rewarding.
Just something to think about. She's got a good point. It could be a volatile situation for you down the road.
I appreciate the answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Mrs. Gramala.
My first item is to request your approval of the professional leave request included in your packet.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And motion carries. Thank you.
My second item is to just share some information about our transition to adulthood program, which we refer to as TAP. I had another acronym in here for you. In your packet was a copy of our most recent brochure about the program that just included a little bit of information, but I will also summarize. So we are required for students with disabilities, they have an option to receive services through age 22 if they have not met graduation requirements. And that's actually through the end of the school year that they turn 22. And so this is most often our students with cognitive disabilities, with autism students, where we're really looking at vocational skills for those students.
So our program, TAP, is housed in a triplex in Cherville. And what's nice about that is it allows this group of students to really leave high school. So they're not staying here from 9th grade through age 22, but it gives them an exit, so they're leaving when all of the other students exit, and they really view it as sort of college and a postgraduate position. They do go through graduation with all the other students here at the high school, and then they move on to TAP. So the other benefit of that location is it gives us a nice opportunity to work on some domestic sort of skills along with, so independent living skills along with the job skills. So for a typical day for our students, they would arrive at TAP. They have a TAP uniform, so they have polos that they wear that identify themselves as students. We have a time clock there where students punch in to get used to those types of activities. There's a big job schedule where they are learning how to, manage their time and figure out where they're going for the day. They will then sort of scatter to job sites. We have paraprofessionals and we have 2 teachers at TAP. So between our paras and our teachers, all of the students are supported while they are out on job sites. And the paras act as job coaches where they're helping the students break down the tasks and learn the steps to completing those things. The time that students spend at job sites versus the time they spend in the TAP facility is really dependent on student needs. Some of our lower functioning students may spend all of their day at the TAP facility working more in like a kind of a sheltered workshop type of setting versus being in a job out in the community. During the students' first year at TAP, we really want to expose them to a wide variety of job sites, and then we sort of continue as they progress in the program to narrow their focus as we identify what their skills are and what they enjoy doing, so they can specialize some more. So there was a complete list of job sites within the packet. You'll see several resale shops, so retail type jobs, food service, working at Dyer Nursing Home, hotels. We're partnering with several of the hotels in the area to work on housekeeping skills. Let's see what else. One thing I was really excited about this year is Allison Mazurkowitz, who is our early childhood supervisor, and I visited Penn Madison School Corp and learned that they use their young adult, they call it young adult students, to work in their preschool programs. So we stole that idea and came back this year. So we have some of our TAP students working in our preschool classrooms at Watson. And so that would prep them for a daycare type job when they're done at TAP. We currently have 44 students attending this program, and that includes students from the school town of Munster, because it is a cooperative program, and then we're anticipating the same number, so we're graduating 10 and gaining 10 next school year. And if you would like to attend, our TAP graduation is a wonderful ceremony, and that is going to be on May 25th at 11 o'clock. And so that's where we say goodbye to our students who are graduating, and parents come, and we have a little picnic, and it's a really nice event, so we'd love to see you there.
And where's that?
I can get you the address. It's Tompkins Court in Cherville. It's right off of, what is that?
Burnham Route 30.
Okay, Burnham Route 30.
Burnham Route 30.
I can send you the address.
You say 11 o'clock?
Mhm.
On the 25th?
On the 25th.
That's awesome. Thanks for the invite.
I just have to say that the TAP program is very, very beneficial for them, and my sister-in-law uses all TAP students at her facility right here on the municipal. It's recycled, right?
Wonderful, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So she
and our
uses
students love
all
going there.
TAP students there, and she used them previous. She was located in Highland. She used students there. She moved over here between, I think it's the auto parts store and the Speedway.
I was very excited when she emailed me earlier this year, because that was a great job site, and we were disappointed to lose her, so.
Yeah, so she
Happy to have her back.
really uses right there in that little facility. It's a great program. It's very complimentary of everybody that's come through there.
That's good to hear, thank you.
This seems to be a very rare program, and I know the law says that we need to provide educational services to the age of 22, but what do most special ed cooperatives do to meet that law? I mean,
Everyone has a different type of program. Some people, continue to house those students in their high school, and it really is just more of the same. Others do have programs similar. NISEC, our neighboring cooperative, has a program similar to ours. I don't think they're have as wide a range of job sites as we do. But it's certainly for us, when we look at, okay, the student has been with us here at Lake Central High School or Munster High School for 4 years, what do they need? And it's the social skills and the vocational skills, and if we can continue to support them and help them grow with those skills, that's the right thing to do for the students, and that's what we do.
So learning how to work in the community and work with other individuals. That's great. So, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Mr. Ledger.
So I will handle Mr. Ledger's tonight, and this is just a storage building update. We did start excavating and we poured the footings in the foundation over spring break. We did backfill with stone last week, and we had to use stone because we ran into some organic material that was under the ground. So in that floor area, we did have to use stone. We have already finished rubbing and finishing the exposed foundation walls. Friday and today, the asphalt plant's opened up in this area, so you've been watching that on television. So we do intend, we are first on the list, we do intend to pave tomorrow and Wednesday, and hopefully if everything goes well and the weather cooperates, we'll start framing out that building by the end of the week.
That's over by
That's
transportation.
over by the transportation department.
Very good, thank you. Okay. Mr. Marino, do you have anything? Okay, and Mr. James is not here?
Yeah, I'm going to handle his items for this evening. So his first item, it's all ready and I buried my stuff. His first item is to seek approval for professional leave for himself, Mr. Flores, Director of Transportation, and Kathy Ramba, Corporation Treasurer, to attend the ASBO annual meeting in Fort Wayne. I can tell you that it's an excellent opportunity to learn about a wide variety of things. In addition to having several breakout sessions for transportation this year, I'm also proud to tell the board that Mr. James has won the District 1 School Business Official of the Year for our district, and Mr. Flores has won the School Support Professional of the Year for our district. Both of them were nominated by their peers, and so they will receive awards at the meeting in Fort Wayne, in addition to learning a lot of stuff. So it's great. Seek approval from the board for those three individuals to attend IASBO annual meeting.
Move to approve that.
Second?
All right, we have a motion. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Okay, very good. My second item is to seek board approval to apply for the Common School Fund loan. You know that we've been using the Common School Fund loans over the last several years to purchase smart boards, Chromebook carts, iPads and carts, and to replace desktop computers and computers in labs, along with some other smaller items, and we want to continue that process. If we are awarded the loan, we do have to pay it back over 5 years at an interest rate of 1%. I think it's also important for the board to know that we are replacing a retiring Common School Fund loan with this one, so the impact to the taxpayers should be negligible. The difference may be a few $1,000s, but it's generally somewhere in the low 900s. So, seek board approval to apply.
Move to approve.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
And Mr. James' final item is to talk about donations. So we did receive a $100 donation to the Clark Theater Group from Generis and Associates. And we also have Home Elementary recently held a Bradley's fundraiser. They would like to donate the proceeds, $1,183.62, to Riley's. Additionally, the Homeland Student Council raised money having a Valentine's Day raffle. They would like to donate the profit of $300 to Treasured Friends Animal Rescue and Adoption. And so the administration recommends the board approving these donations, both received and given.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Thank you.
Dr. Verno, can I just jump in here for a second? Unless I'm mistaken, and Jeannie can help me out here, when we finished discussing the early intervention grant, we actually didn't accept that grant. So can we do it under, did we forget that? Okay, can we do that under either Mr. James here or go back to Mrs. Schoen and actually accept that grant as it was presented?
Yes, would somebody make a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to make a motion to approve the early intervention grant.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you
Sorry
for
about that.
catching that.
That's okay, thank
Thank you
you.
for catching that.
Okay, before we move on, I also want to share with the board that Mr. James did put a copy of our most recent general fund cash flow, and that is our revenues and expenditures with actual revenues and actual expenditures through March. And he wanted to have you to have that to review, and should you have any questions about it, certainly can send questions to us. And then additionally, I failed to mention that I also put an article at your workstation earlier this evening about the expanding voucher law in Indiana. And so if you have questions after you have a chance to review that at your leisure, send them my way. But, you know, it's funny how Mr. Gandolfi and I talk about this a lot. You know, you'll talk to legislators and you'll try to keep track, but all of a sudden they slip stuff in, right, when there's no real time to react. And I mean, this session has to end at some point, and we understand that, but we just get frustrated when things haven't even been on the radar screen at all, and all of a sudden they pop up in a piece of legislation, and they're detrimental to public ed in Indiana. So I just wanted to share that article with you, and perhaps we can share some of what I just said with our legislators the next time we meet. That when they get something, they should share it, that, hey, this is down the pipe, what do you think? And that might be helpful to have a better system in our state. So that's all I have for right now.
What's the source of this article? Where did you receive this?
I received it from Superintendent's Association.
Interesting. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, are there any public comments tonight? Mary, Dennis, come forward and state your name.
Mary Candace, 2610 Lakewood Drive, Dyer, Indiana, 46311. I came here tonight to make sure that you understand how grateful the town of Dyer is to the cooperation that we have enjoyed over the last 6.5 years, working with various programs and so forth. And I know Don is pretty good about coming to RDC meetings, and it's after our town council meetings, and sometimes they get pretty lengthy, and I get that. But this time, we were all about beautification. And as you probably are aware, that Dyer is part of the America in Bloom program. We were given a grant, and last year, we presented awards to not only residents, but Taylor Middle School won an award from America in Bloom. And their whole idea is the beautification of our communities, just to make it a welcoming place to be in. They will be back in July with 2 more judges, and we'd like to welcome you, to come and see what we're doing. We hope that we can take them to both Protzman and Bibbich and show them, what we're doing to make Dyer beautiful. We'd like to incorporate more students, both at the elementary and high school level, and of course at the middle school level. So that's something that we look forward to today. So thank you so much for your cooperation, and it just works really well when we all work together on projects to make life a little bit better in Lake County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will you send us an email to remind us of those dates in July?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, board comments. Mr. Marshall?
I have none, thank you.
All right, Mrs. Hughes?
We have one. Last week, Clark Middle School held a dodgeball contest for all grade levels. I believe it was headed by Mr. Stanish. Everybody had fun. I had fun. Teachers lost. How do you feel about it?
We lost.
You lost.
For the record, it was our student council, actually, I had passed along that opportunity for them to take control of it. I gave them some of my materials that I used the last 3 years that I ran it, and they really took it on and ran with it and did a great job. The kids had a blast. This is the first year that, since I've been there, that we actually had a teacher team. So we didn't win, but it was a great time. Everybody, there's always a good turnout, and all the proceeds benefit Riley's. So that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Anything else? All right, Mrs. Lesentine?
Nothing at this time. Bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter.
No comments at this time.
I just had a real quick question. Based on the demographer report, were you surprised that Watson's enrollment was so low, or is that what you expected?
I was a little surprised, yes. However, when we talk about the neighborhood surrounding Watson, not so surprised.
Yeah, not a lot of growth going on there, huh?
No, not a lot of
Stable.
homes for sale, a lot of empty nesters. It's a nice community. Why would they leave?
Just wondered about that, okay. Okay, that was all I had, and Dr. Broco?
We have senior banquet this Friday. We have
Friday?
$4 for scholars on April 30th, Sunday, as Mrs. Seuss mentioned earlier, and our next meeting will be May 1st.
And what is Friday again?
Senior banquet.
All right, and board members, as Dr. Bracco indicated to us in an email, we do meet with the retirees at the May 15th school board meeting, so we won't have the opportunity to come in early and go through these policies. So we'll have to do that on May 1. May 1, does 6 o'clock work for everyone?
Yes.
May 1 to 6?
Sounds good.
All right, and we will go ahead then and finish the 2000s and hope to get into the 3000s. All right, thank you. All right.
So I will second that.
All right, motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your
I
patience.
just voted.